Parking spot's gonna do, and that's why
All right, settle. All right, you good, Lynn? Yep. Okay. All right, let's do it. And pictures up. Last looks, please.
Pictures up.
Last
looks.
And action.
The job of a director is to have a vision and to communicate it. That's it. That's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. But the communication part is really tricky. You know, it's you have to be very thorough and very clear, and hopefully you have collaborators who can actually contribute their own ideas and own interpretations.
Jay, Lynn, and I spent about a year developing the script. Jay and Lynn co-wrote it together and just kind of talked about where we wanted to take Chris and Carol and their story and what we wanted to say about re-entry.
This story that we're telling is a love story first and foremost, but we tried to be as true and as honest as possible about what that emerging experience is like when you're coming out of prison, how challenging that can be. Yeah, I'm proud of this movie. I think just what it creates on a human scale, which is it's a little bit of an empathy engine.
Good, let's reset.
It starts the day of his release. After being in prison for 20 years, he went in when he was 18 years old.
He is re-entering into a brand new world. Chris has never been an adult in the free world. How has the world changed? And what does that world look like to somebody who is re-entering after 20 years?
Chris is gonna take a piss in private for the first time in 20 years.
His emotional, psychological growth kind of is stunted in some ways, so he's sort of like still kind of an 18-year-old, because that was the last time he was in the free world. But he's also been hardened and kind of like, you know, forever traumatized by the horribleness of being in prison.
Lynn Shelton called me on the phone. She said that she had this vision of me playing this character, getting out of prison, and pursuing the woman who sort of educated him through jail, kind of kept him alive, and ultimately got him an early release by working through, you know, her own channels.
What are you up to?
Everybody else in his life kind of faded away a little bit, even his family, and so she really became the bedrock for his mental state.
Okay. All right, second team.
Figuring out who Carol was going to be was a bit of a challenge, and I think the minute Edie was cast, it all fell into place.
Carol got involved with Chris as a result of him being sort of wrongfully accused of a crime. And she had kind of got a hook into that situation, realizing that somebody needs to help him, and that I had a certain amount of passion for that.
While Chris is having an awakening of getting out of jail, Carol is having an awakening about herself and her own family.
The character of Carol has sort of emerged as we've been shooting this. Little by little, the character kind of shows itself to me rather than the other way around. I think the more I can remain open to who this person is, the more dimension it feels like it has. I think it's a story we don't see a ton of. I mean, it's unconventional. You know, it's kind of a love story, but it is as complicated as real life presents itself to me.
One of the things that I was interested in was the idea of two people who had developed a bond and a closeness and an intimacy without being able to be physical at all.
It's been a terrible disservice to people who go see movies and TV even, to pretend that people my age don't have full emotional lives. I mean, I can speak only from experience in that I've never had a fuller emotional life than I do now.
Do I look as good as I feel?
All right, here we go. Quiet, everyone, and action.
At the same time that Chris is pursuing Carol and they are flirting with this idea of potentially being together and breaking up her marriage, you know, Carol is also dealing with her estrangement from her 18-year-old daughter.
Hildy.
From the very beginning, Lynn knew she wanted Kaitlyn Dever to be in this film no matter what.
Day one that I worked with her, I was like, I have to work with her again. Like, was in love with her. She's just amazing. She really is just incredible.
And in the back of my head, I was like, she can't be as good as everybody thinks and says she is. And then she showed up and I was like, no, she's better. I don't really understand how she's that smart or aware or unself-conscious as an actor, as an 18-year-old.
Hildy is a bit of an angsty teen. I think Hildy is just kind of, she's a teenager. She's trying to figure things out in her world.
She's got a lot of depth to her and is an artist without even understanding that she is an artist.
A relationship between Carol's daughter Hildy and Chris starts to percolate, and they form a very unusual friendship.
I think they become really good friends, and they understand each other. And I think Chris does bring her out of some sort of shell.
But it's a really unusual relationship that, within the context of the movie, makes a ton of sense.
Very cool.
So Chris's brother, Ted, was a character that I think it took us a while to flesh him out and figure out what he was going to be. In fact, at one point, he was two different characters.
I was drawn to this character for, well, two reasons. I was drawn to this role because I think Lynn Shelton is a genius, and I saw films of hers and always wanted to work with her. All of her movies, everybody just seems like the camera just happened to catch them acting. It looks like real life, and I loved the idea of the way she portrays story and characters, and I love Jay Duplass. I was a fan of his films, and then to be a fan of his acting as well now. And Edie Falco's in it. Like, the cast was kind of amazing, and to be in a Lynn Shelton film and to like have this experience together, we're all kind of living in the same house and we're all kind of making something. I really do like the idea of making films like that. So that all the pieces came together perfectly. I was like, oh, I want to play with all these people and I want to be told what to do from this person, and let's go for it.
Ben brought some comedy to it. We definitely wanted Ted to be funny.
And that rhymed, if you want to keep clapping for that.
He's a character that is sort of avoiding the pain of what has happened. I mean, he's such a great actor and I think capable of everything, so it was kind of cool to see him do his thing here.
Lynn and I both have a long history of working with our director of photography, Nathan Miller.
Nate Miller is the oak tree of cinematographers. He literally has just been holding the camera all the time.
I have loved working with him. I trust his eye, I trust his vision, I trust his opinion. Yeah, he's the bomb.
You know, I've noticed that everyone on this set is really working towards one thing. And they all have a goal, and they want to make this film the best it can be.
Doing this movie has made me realize kind of how much I miss this flavor of collaboration that happens.
It's a family of working together. Each of us have this sense of what everybody's going towards.
Our company mandate has always just been work with great people and make great art. I mean, that's the real simple truth of it.
A very special crew, yeah, it really was.
Lynn and I knew that we wanted to come back to Washington State and make a film. So from the start, that was never a question, but we really didn't know where in Washington.
I really like geographic specificity. I think it comes across. I think that a real place comes across on screen.
We landed on Granite Falls, and it's a very small town. It's about an hour northeast of Seattle, at the foot of the Cascade Mountains.
To come to the town that you're shooting in and that it's set in, to be amongst the people, to be amongst the buildings and the weather, you don't have to pretend as much. And it's just been amazing. I mean, you know, it's funny because, you know, there's a whole different culture when you're shooting in Washington. Like, whether it's raining or not, people just say roll camera.
Speed. So speed. All right.
There's something so ineffably sweet about two human beings who on paper shouldn't be able to really have a true relationship, or you wouldn't think that they would, but having an actual, you know, real soul connection. And I've always been attracted to unlikely combinations of humans.
This to me is very much a story about people wanting to be seen. I think the story is about people wanting to feel important, but to also make sure someone else knows that they are important to them.
You know, just the idea of this is a hard world to live in, and people are trying very hard to find their way and to find ways to love each other. And I think I'm proud to be making anything that is first and foremost about love and about people trying to be good to each other.
I hope that people leave this feeling like characters felt real and flawed in ways that feel like belong in this world. And then we did justice to this area where we're shooting and the idea of what we're trying to show. I don't want people to be like, oh, I want to see 100 more Lynn Shelton movies.
Yeah, it's a very intimate story. Ordinary people in kind of extraordinary, kind of dramatic circumstances.